And tell me, you're like, I feel like I have an agent set up that's just
Hmm.
watching, like making sure that even though here's the guardrails, like sometimes they do crazy stuff. Like why is that? Why would you say that if you give it definitive like guardrails, it sometimes doesn't follow it? And I have to have like a observer agent watching that agent, making sure that it doesn't, hard code in, um, API key or, you know what I mean? Like, why does it do it even if you tell it not to do it? Like I would say it's like data hygiene, but if this is a new project, like it's like it shouldn't be an issue, but sometimes it is.
There are different reasons that could be happening. I'm not going to be able to tell you one reason without
Yeah, yeah,
actually diagnosing your particular case. But one reason, I'll just go through a bullet list
yeah.
and we can
That'd
dive
be
into
awesome.
any one of them if you want. So one of them could just be the model mismatch. You might have a model that's just not good enough for that. Like if you're using haiku or something equivalent to that, they're very pattern based.
Mm,
They're looking for patterns and they replicate them rather than thinking through problems. And then the mid-tier models like Sonnet, they're better, but they can definitely, I've seen them definitely, what you're talking about, like hard coding values in. They're like, oh, your test case says that in this test it should come up with this answer. So I'll just hard code that value with a magic number in the code. And all of a sudden your tests pass. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. That's not the goal of the testing, whatever. But another category, so, you might just need a stronger model, right? Sometimes that fixes things. Like Opus is very good at following instructions, and we've been experimenting a lot also with GLM5,
so
5.1,
you just think if they're
Turbo.
get better, like they're just going to
That's
learn.
one.
Yeah.
That's one vector,
Yeah.
right, of like possible reasons. Another is context and memory management, and you could also include skill management and
Okay.
tooling as like all part of that category. So if you see, for example, and this, oh, and then the next thing which ties into this is how do you approach problems when you see them? So whenever we see a problem, we always ask ourselves, the question isn't why is this model making this problem? It's what can I do to improve the system to make
Mhm.
sure that this problem doesn't happen again, right? And so that framing is really important to take. And sometimes I see people just start writing angry messages to the AI or tell it more sternly how it should be doing its job, and like that might get you some results, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen again to you, right? Because what you're not, you have to really be thinking about system design.
Yeah.
So, so take a crash course on like how to be a good system designer and look at what are the top 5, 10 things you need to learn to be that, to embody those qualities. And then that's how you should be approaching the problems. So if you have an AI that's not following the instructions consistently, maybe you need, you can even ask the AI, do you have a good skill for this? What skill are you using? Or you can look at the log of how it did it.
Mm.
Maybe it tried something and it got an error, and then it tried something else, got an error, and then it tried a third thing, and then it found the answer, and then it took that. And then you can kind of watch what it did. And if you're seeing that it's kind of bumping along the way like a pinball machine, you can go through that with the AI afterwards, and you can streamline it with a skill that tells it immediately the correct way to do it, so it's not having to bump around like a pinball machine.
Mm.
Sometimes the prompt or the system prompt or the thing that they're writing is not actually phrased in the way that is the most effective.
Mm.
As models get stronger too, you really want to be focusing more on why you want to be doing something, which is often forgotten, that you need to communicate that to the AI, and what the desired end goal of it is, and not just the steps. Like I want you to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That can work, but especially as you get to stronger models like Mythos that's coming out, you
Yeah.
want to really be making sure that you're guiding these AI systems with goals and purpose of what they're trying to achieve, because that helps the AI a lot to make sure that it's not going to shortcut you with like a magic number in there. Because if you're telling it like, we want to make sure that this works for all possible values of this variable in this, here's going to be some test cases, make sure it passes those tests. That's very different than saying, here's a test, the answer should be 1.5, go test it. And then the AI is like, oh, we want it to be 1.5, let's hard code that thing in.
So I saw a podcast interview with the founder, and he was just like, I use plan mode, like for almost
Mhm.
everything, right?
Yeah.
To give it those objectives to answer those questions, which
Mhm.
I think are extremely helpful. One of the things you made me think of was like, how are you solving like persistent memory? And you mentioned Obsidian earlier, and
Mhm.
we've started to toy around with that. I'm not like an advanced user, but I would love to know kind of like how you're solving the persistent memory and kind of like connecting it
Sure.
all together, because you only, like you said, you only have so much in the context window,
Mhm.
and when it compresses it, it kind of it loses stuff, and you got like the heartbeat component. Like there's
Okay,
just
you're
like with
there's so many
with
things I
open,
can say
yeah.
now because you keep mentioning new things.
I
I do
know,
want to
I know.
also
I'm
just touch.
sorry. Like,
Yeah,
clean it up for me. Clean it up for the listeners of
I
like
do.
how
I do want to
you.
also just touch base on plan mode, because plan mode is awesome when you want to be building things, but there's a very big difference between planning, which is to build something, versus using something. You can't use plan mode to use an
Yes.
agentic
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure that that's clear.